corporations, and they're threatening to raise our taxes next year because Washington passed a health care bill that scares us and makes it more expensive for us to hire people. Because everything that comes out of Washington is anti-business and anti-competition and anti-growth. Because their agencies create regulations we don't understand and cannot comply with. Some of those folks didn't even know about the craziest idea that came out of that health care bill. One of the craziest ideas. This requirement that every transaction in excess of $600, you're going to have to issue a 1099. These guys were in construction. The other guys, Ring Power, they sell like Caterpillar equipment. Everything they sell is more than $600. Can you imagine they're going to have to issue a 1099 every time they buy something over $600? They're going to have to hire 2 or 3 people just to do that. It's outrageous. And so Washington is making it harder, not easier. The health care bill is a disaster. Just in the last 2 weeks. Just in the last 2 weeks. You know what this health care bill has done? Let me outline some of the things we've learned just in the last 2 weeks. Number 1, lower wage part-time workers are losing their coverage. McDonald's announced they would have to drop their plans. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah. Small insurance companies are going out of business. They're either selling out to the big companies or they're dropping out altogether, which means less competition, which is not good for the cost of health care. Retiree benefits are being dropped by certain companies. Seniors are being dropped out of Medicare Advantage. Insurance companies are all filing rate increases and premium increases because of the mandates created by this health care bill. People are losing their existing coverage. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. Every promise that they made when this bill was passed has been broken. Every single one. They said, and you remember, they said, if you like this plan, if you like this coverage, if you like the coverage that you have right now, no one is going to lose their plan. Did they say that? Yes. They lied. Yes. Up to 69% of people who currently get their coverage from their employer could lose their coverage based on the way they've written the rules. They said that this bill would make Medicare stronger. Didn't they say that? Yes. They lied. You know what? When the trustees issued a report agreeing with the administration, the chief actuary of Medicare refused to sign the report. And for the first time in the program's history, he wrote an addendum to the report saying, all of the assertions in this report are false. Wow. They said that it would lower the cost of health care. Didn't they say that? Yes. They lied. It's not true. It is increasing the cost of health care because it's destroying competition and it's raising the cost of premiums. And the most miraculous thing happened today. I don't know if you saw this last night. You know who Rory Reid is?
Yes. Yeah.
He's Harry Reid's son. He's running for governor of Nevada. He announced yesterday that this health care bill may be bad for Nevada.
Well, at least he admitted his last name. Yeah, I know.
I don't know about you, but it sounds like there's a lack of communication.
Bunch of liars. Fire the liars.
There's a problem. So here's where we are in this campaign. These things are not going to solve themselves. This economy, as long as the government keeps doing what it's doing, it's not going to grow. Job creators are not going to create jobs because we are in the hands, this government is in the hands of people who believe that government and politicians create jobs. And let me tell you guys something, I wish that were true sometimes because it's a lot easier to pass a bill than it is to create a job in the private sector.
No risk though.
Unfortunately, that's what it takes. You need people who are confident enough in the future to start that business or expand that existing business. And that's what this election has to be about, is the choices that are before us. Now let me warn you about the next 3 weeks. My opponents are on the wrong side of all these issues. The 2 gentlemen that I'm running against, they supported the stimulus package. And they can't defend it now. Not with unemployment at 9.6%. Not with 200,000 Floridians have lost their jobs since the stimulus passed. So for them, the campaign can't be about the stimulus. My 2 opponents support Obamacare. And yet I've outlined what a disaster it is. So for them, this campaign can't be about Obamacare. My 2 opponents have no ideas about how to solve the problems of Social Security and the risk that it places on our nation's future. My 2 opponents support the direction this administration is taking our country, a direction that will double our debt and in 5 years, triple it in 10. Do you realize that at some point in the next decade, we are going to be spending at least $900 billion a year of borrowed money that we will borrow to pay the interest on the debt.
From China.
You know, yeah, well, from China. You know, of that $900 billion or above, close to half of those interest payments will go to our debt holders overseas. That means they're going to be borrowing money to pay interest, and half of it to people that don't live here. That's where we're headed. We're going to spend more in interest at one point than we will in our national defense. These are serious problems. And our opponents are on the wrong side of these issues. And so they can't campaign on the issues. They certainly can't campaign on the record. One of my opponents' voting record is identical to Nancy Pelosi. And if I know one thing, I know that the people of Florida do not want Nancy Pelosi to be the next year's president.
She's done.
My other opponent can't campaign on his record because the last 4 years in Florida have been abysmal. When he took over as governor, Florida was one of the top 2 or 3 economies in the country. Today, only California and Nevada are worse off.
He's a traitor.
800,000 jobs have been destroyed since he took over as governor in 2006. A quarter of them since the stimulus plan passed. He approved $2 billion in new taxes and fees, breaking a pledge never to do so. You can't run on a record like that. So if you can't run on your record, and you can't run on your ideas because you either have none or they're wrong, what do you run on?
Snare tactics.
You run on scary attacks that are false and personal attacks that do nothing about our nation's future. Now listen, this is stunning to me, because one of my opponents is a member of a party led by a president who said that the reason why he was running is there was too much nastiness in politics. And yet now he is complicit in it. Because all across this country, their candidates are running campaigns that no longer talk about the issues. They blatantly lie about where you stand on the issues. My other opponent is running because he says Washington is too conflictive and there's too much bickering. And yet all the ads he runs in Florida are negative attacks that are untruthful. Lying, trying to scare seniors. You guys know Senator Connie Mack yesterday put out a statement saying that these things were false and not to continue to say them? This is the point we've reached. This campaign can't be about that. Don't you think we can do that too? We can run ads like that as well, but that's unfair to you. That's not what you signed up to be a part of. You guys did not sign up for my campaign a year and a half ago when I was 30 points down in the polls because you wanted someone to talk bad about these guys. You signed up because you believe America's headed in the wrong direction. And you want a voice out there that's pointing that out and offering an alternative. And that's what we've given you. And now let me ask you this. Remember I told you earlier that there's no way I can repay you for all the work you've done for me? There are 2 things I can do to repay you for the work you have done and the work you are doing. There are 2 things, by the way, that I can do to honor the sacrifice that my family has made. Because one of the promises I made to them and myself is that win or lose in this campaign, 20 years from now, I wanted to be able to sit down with my children and be proud of the campaign that we ran, not have to explain it to them.
God bless you, Michael.
Here are the 2 things that I can do to honor them and to repay you for the work you're putting in. Number 1, for the next 3.5 weeks, I can give you the kind of campaign that you can be proud of. A campaign that tackles the issues of our time, that says openly, we cannot continue to spend more money than we're taking in. We cannot continue to try to target people with tax increases and wage class warfare. And we must do everything we can to keep America the strongest country in the world, because when America is the strongest country in the world is a better and safer place.
Yes.
And here's the second thing I can do to repay you. And it's more important than the first. When I get to Washington, I cannot change. I cannot go up there and become like the people that have been elected before, and once they get there, they figure out, well, now I can do whatever I want because I won. That's the reason why we put out over 80 ideas on our website. Let me tell you that. People that are in politics, they tell you, this doesn't make sense. Don't put out ideas. If you put out ideas, your opponents can attack you on your ideas. And that's what they do. You know that's what they do. You put out an idea in politics and your opponents attack your ideas, but they offer nothing in return. They offer nothing in return. That's why they're able to attack or misstate or lie, quite frankly, about our ideas about Social Security, but they either have no plan or their plan is nonsense, like amnesty for illegal aliens. But we had to put out ideas, and I'll tell you why. If we don't put out ideas, then what am I accountable to? What am I accountable to? If my campaign is not based on specific public policy, how are you going to hold me accountable? When I get elected, how are you going to say, well, you promised to do this and now you didn't do it? If my campaign ads, all they do is convince you not to vote for the other guys, how are you going to hold me accountable? If my campaign ads are just about me talking about, you know, how I want to be nice to everybody and how I'm against hurricanes, how...
You've done a very good job this year.
That was good. That was good.
By the way, I am against hurricanes, but how are you going to hold me accountable? And you want to know the biggest problem we have in Washington? That's what it is. All these guys and gals, they're completely unaccountable. They honestly believe that they can say and do whatever they want because they can raise so much money that they can confuse you come election time. They can raise so much money that they can make you forget everything they ever said. And so the second way that I can repay you is to go to Washington, D.C. and be what I said I would be. And that's what I will be. And I'll tell you why. Because this stuff is deeply personal to me. And I've outlined it at the beginning. I don't think, I don't believe, I know for a fact that I am a citizen of the greatest society in all of human history. And
Yes.